Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 771, Richard here, and we've got lots to talk about. It's Ignite this week, so we're going to be talking about Microsoft's conference, what that means for us consumers, with some Teams features and things like that, and where are the consumer features. We'll talk about Xbox and lots of interesting stuff coming up from Xbox this week. We've got new builds of Windows 10, and we've got the name of the next update for Windows 10, the October 2020 update. We're talking about that. Smart home, Lego, and lots more. Plus, we've got a bonus interview from Garry as well. So let's start off with, we'll go to Richard and I. Richard, good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Ian?
Okay, good. Trying to adjust my Teams volume so I don't have the distortion level that I did last week. I may be too close mic last week, but this auto gain is really struggling with that. But you and Garry always sound fine, and I spent ages trying to get my professional mic.
What you need is a cheap and nasty headset like what I have.
Yeah.
And you can pop and hiss with the best of them.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm using this. It's a good microphone, but I think because Teams decides to control the gain levels, it doesn't. I can't fix it, and I wonder whether I got a bit close to the mic last week, and that was the issue. So hopefully I'm sounding smooth and late night radio DJ for type voice, and not too much like Chris Evans when he's had too much energy drink in the early
caffeine.
90s.
Exactly. Too much caffeine.
Yeah. So Gary's not with us this evening, but we have got lots of things to talk about, and Ignite's going on as well. So there's a few bits and pieces we saw of that. I did get to watch the stuff on. I watched the Satya and Nadella's keynote, which I quite like sometimes, but I do find them the very buzzword. I don't know what I know it's a bit of a running joke about the sort of buzzword bingo you've got, but they really do. They are. I think what was the one I've forgotten, the one that you kept going on about tech. Wasn't it a tech adoption? Oh, I've forgotten what it was.
Acceleration.
Yeah, and it was technical things times by reliability.
Oh yeah. He did that last year as well.
Yeah. So, I do like these tech keynotes, but there's a lot of there's a lot of buzzwords in them.
Yes, I mean, I must admit, I sat through it, and I must admit, it's not really for me, to be honest. I always find those kind of very high level things quite, it's that there's very rarely anything that interesting that you weren't expecting to come out of them. I mean, this is, I think, one of the really sad things about Ignite this year, that obviously last year it was an in-person event. This year it's remote, and the problem with that, I think, for all of us who write about Microsoft and cover the Microsoft offbeat, it's we're really missing now, I think, talking to people in hallways and having those ad hoc meetings and things, because when it's being done virtually as it is now, it's very easy for the message to be controlled, and I think that can actually make things a bit predictable and dull in some ways. And one thing Satya is, sadly, he's not the most exciting of speakers. I mean, he's done a wonderful job at Microsoft, but he's not a very exciting speaker.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're missing out on those hallway conversations where you get tipped off about something that turns out a little bit juicy tip that you can keep until until the right moment or something. You're just missing out on all that.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, I can remember last year talking to, I think it may have been one of the Windows subsystem for Linux teams, or the terminal guys, and just a little thing was dropped in conversation. You thought, oh, hello, that's interesting. So it's I think we're missing that. It's really, this year one's really starting to miss those things now. These events are becoming very, very choreographed, and obviously the likes of Apple were the masters at that. Now I think everyone is doing the same thing. So it's, I'm not sure. I mean, there's been some interesting things in Ignite. I'm sure we'll touch on some of them. But thus far, I think the most interesting thing I've seen so far has been the writer Richard Hay observing that it would be really handy in these events if they could have bio breaks in between the presentations, because in the past you'd go from session to session and there'd be time to sort yourself out, whereas now it's just a bang 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 bang, and it can be a bit breathless after a while.
Yeah, and I find if I was, well, I haven't been to one of these for a while, but if I was there in person, obviously that's what I would be doing and focusing on. Whereas, I've still got a day job and a family and everything else, and fitting all this stuff in over like 48 hours of content is not easy.
Exactly, and I think that is, in all seriousness, an issue with all these events. That when people used to go there, you were focused on the event. Now, of course, you're fitting it in among around your day job and your family life and what have you. Particularly us UK people, when it's a US event, it's like you've got no chance. Although I will give kudos to the Windows subsystem for the Linux guys who, with WSL Conf, did try and fit sessions so that they would work in different time zones. But on the whole, I think not being there, it definitely is. Yeah, it's beginning to bite a bit now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So the some of this, aside from the keynote, which, like I said, was interested in visions, and they showed off some things like how they're using Teams, how different businesses are using Teams, and schools have been using Teams, and Azure backend, and a bit of Mercedes-Benz using HoloLens for field technicians. There wasn't anything particularly new on there. I did see some around the Teams area that there's some enhancements coming to Teams which look quite interesting.
Yeah, there are. I mean, obviously, I think it will be perhaps more for education. It's one of those things I was a little surprised that Teams didn't already do, if I'm completely honest. But I should have known this, which was the breakout room stuff. I think that's quite that's a major innovation in Teams, which has been in the likes of Zoom for a long time. But that's a function where you can take say a large group, and you can then break that group into separate smaller groups, and they can then have discussions. So really, in many ways, like if you're in a teaching environment or lecture, you can then set groups off to have discussions, and then effectively hop from room to room, which I was surprised Teams didn't actually have yet, but that's coming now. I think in the next month, did they say it's imminent?
Yeah.
And there was also the usual array of cool Teams hardware. You had the meeting room panels, which if we ever get to meeting rooms again, they'll tell you who's in the meeting room. I quite like that. And of course, just speaking about the current situation as well, they did mention that a lot of the Teams devices would be going touch free, wouldn't they? They're using Cortana more to control Teams devices. Although I was pleased to see at long last the 85-inch Surface Hub 2S is finally coming out. Although you can only order it if you're in the US.
And I think, was it 20,000?
I think it's about $22,000. I think it's a lot of money for what is basically a middling Windows 10 computer stuck on the back of a big screen. It's a lot of money for that. And of course, they made a huge big thing a few weeks ago about the fact you could now install Windows 10 on it, which is just like, if that's not that feels like an admission that something has gone badly wrong with that system. If they're saying, why do you put Windows 10 on this? It's like, so you're saying the apps that we need to do business don't work on it in its stock configuration, because the future obviously was the Surface Hub 2X, wasn't it? They would do it to tile these things and run the special version of Windows that has never seen the light of day.
One day we'll get to see it. It is it's a big telly with some nice interface on it. I like the little demo where they could just walk up to the device and it would recognize them and started doing it. I imagine not a huge seller at the moment. I probably find it quite difficult to get my board to sign off on one of those at the moment.
I think you'd be surprised. I mean, the 50-inch model, I think that has done relatively well in its niche. Certainly, what I've heard is it has found its niche in companies. I mean, obviously, the issue with it is it was designed for meeting rooms with people to draw on it in a group environment. And of course, what's happened since March is people don't really want to be doing that anymore. Things have changed, so I do wonder a little bit about the market for that. A little bit like, Google announced their Series 1 stuff, I think last week, wasn't it, where they announced their meeting room hardware. They've already got the Jamboard, which is a similar device where you have it's like a jumped up whiteboard, you can collaborate on it, what have you. They've also introduced sort of microphones and cameras as well, which I guess might work if you've got people remotely, but I think meeting room devices were probably put into production maybe 9-12 months ago, and of course they're now starting to emerge, and the world has suddenly changed around them.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, even although I'm in the office and we were having a discussion, we could have used the meeting room because we all work in IT. We use Teams. It was just easier than standing up and wandering over. So we tend to use Teams. So that's where this breakout room seems quite good, because when I go to conferences or business through work, so especially we have maybe all the European IT managers and that kind of thing, and then we split off into groups. That those breakout rooms is ideal for that.
I mean, and I think that's the thing that's come. I mean, Teams have been evolving at breakneck pace, and certainly I think many consumers may well come across it because many schools have been using it, and there's a good chance schools, universities will be using it again in the near future. So I think, functions like breakout rooms may not have been introduced as quickly as they have been, because I think obviously Microsoft is looking at Zoom, how quickly that's grown, what people are using, and they're innovating Teams, I think, impressively fast.
I like the I use a together mode quite a bit, especially when
I'm sorry for using innovating as a verb there. I apologize. You can cut me off now.
But yeah, I use I find that boring meetings are often quite livened up by using together mode, because it's kind of hilarious when you see people sat in those virtual rooms, and I think they're adding some more layouts.
I just can't help. I mean, the Muppet Show theme tune to myself. I really can't help it.
Yeah. I love it, because especially when you get different people some people sat close to the video camera, some people sat far away, so that changes their relative size. So you get little people and big people and bored people.
Yeah, I must confess, I'm not convinced by that gimmick, if I'm honest. I'd rather they made it easier to log into it and use it than that.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. But I tell you, you kind of get sucked into it, especially we've moved more and more stuff and work with it, and it's become my sort of replace. You say everybody lives in Outlook. Well, I think now everybody I'm finding more and more live in Teams, and if it integrates with Teams, then I'd rather use it that way than any other way. Yeah,
I think you're right. Yeah.
But I'm trying to think what else.
I mean, there are also some other things around Teams. I mean, I was just trying to think of the more. I mean, there were a lot of enterprisey things around there with security and things. I think there's also Outlook for Mac. Was that a new thing? I think that appear as well. I can't remember if that was mentioned at all in all the things. So that was a thing as well.
I think I saw that they were updating Microsoft Streams as well, so that or at least the recording. So when I record this call now, which we use for the podcast, after I finish the call, I go to Microsoft Streams, download the file, and then I go and edit that. But I think they're changing it so the recording file ends up in your OneDrive as an MP4 file, so you don't have to go through that sort of process.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which is a little thing, but I think they're just trying to make it easier for recordings. But apart from that, I mean, they're all incremental changes, and I suppose if they make admins' life easier and Teams, but it's no major impact on consumer stuff. I'm just really surprised they haven't somehow worked out how to get Teams working for families. Because I've got my own domain on Teams, which and I've got 5 user accounts that comes with that. So I've allocated one to everyone in the family. The 4 of us have got it, but we don't really use it for shared calendars and things like that, which I think we probably could if I put some effort into setting it up. But I'm surprised they haven't sort of got that Teams for Life thing that we talked about, sort of rumors was early in the year.
I mean, I guess they're trying to work out a way of doing it in a frictionless fashion. Would be the first issue. They've got the Skype product already, and Skype, I think they are desperately trying to kill off Skype at the moment, but it's obviously plateaued with its user count compared to obviously the likes of Zoom. But I'm guessing they just can't work out a way of doing it in a way that's frictionless, and maybe they at the moment can't be bothered just to invest as much money in that as they are in enterprise, because enterprise is where the money is. Consumer,
they're paying for it. Yeah.
I mean, we'll obviously talk about Xbox and Game Pass in a moment, but consumer appears to really be. They don't really seem to be that bothered about it unless one counts the TikTok thing, which I'd rather not talk about as well.
Well, we don't have to talk about that now, which is a good thing.
Yes, I'm very pleased. I'm very happy they didn't buy that. I was a bit concerned there, but I'm very relieved.
They did buy some other things, which we'll talk about shortly.
Yes, they did indeed.
I think is that it for Ignite? I think so far we're on day 1 of it anyway, as we record on Tuesday evening.
I mean, I think that's probably the most major thing. I mean, again, I was hoping for some Windows 10X surprises. I've not seen any of those really. Just some updates around the Neo, but again, nothing that I've seen yet. You never know. Perhaps a thing might come out in the next couple of days, but at the moment it's all been very quiet on that front. But Ignite is it is enterprise, isn't it? So
yeah,
especially now. Although we did have some Windows 10 releases. In fact, I think one happened today, didn't it?
Yeah, well, big news on the 20H2 front.
Yes, or the Windows 10 October 2020 update, as it's now known.
Yeah,
Which,
so we've got official name.
Which again, last week they said, we are releasing build 19042.508. This is obviously the 18th of September, which they said we think it's going to be the final release, the final build. And today they released another one. Which is kind of, you kind of expect to happen. Again, it's just many patches because I think they had they've been having some problems with the Windows subsystem for Linux, I think. So they fixed an issue with that, and then the rest they've basically going through, I think, things that are just part of the patching process. The patching process anyway. So I guess the question now is, when do you think the October 2020 update is going to hit? Are we going to be waiting until October? I mean, it's been done for weeks, hasn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's been done for, like I say, it's been done for ages. It went on. When was it? Went to the release preview last week.
It was last week, yeah.
Yeah, got to release preview, and I always thought, well, it's done. There's nothing more they can do with it. But then I looked at this issue list for today's update.
Quite a lot, wasn't it?
It's a massive long list, actually. So it just shows you that there are stuff going on in there.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of I'd say enterprisey things as well in there, which did surprise me. Things like cryptography issues, things like around PowerShell. Quite a lot of things did surprise me. Although I guess, Ian, you'll be pleased to note there's some Windows mixed reality fixes in there too, including making sure they meet the minimum spec requirements and default to 90 Hertz. Don't know if you saw that.
Oh no, I didn't scroll. Well, I didn't really see that. Oh, that's good. I've not my gaming machine. I leave now. I've burnt it with the fast ring as it was. So then I've left it on the release on the just release, not even release preview. So that's good to see. I'm surprised with it, but yeah, when it thinks release, my guess would be Patch Tuesday as for seekers, so you've got to do the download and install option.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and hopefully it won't see anywhere near the same amount of issues that 2004 or the May update saw, which of course it came out with about, was it 10, 11 serious issues with it, and it was blocked for Surface devices, which I still can't fully get my head around how that could possibly have happened.
Yeah, and of course we should say as well that this isn't a full build.
Exactly.
Update.
Yeah.
This is a patch, and it installs really quickly. It's only sort of a 10-minute install.
Yeah, it's very quick. It's a little more than a jumped up community update, and most of the things in it you've probably already had downloaded over. If I think was July the last time they put new stuff into Windows 10 that came down, and then all this will do is just turn things on. Is that about how it works? Yeah.
Yes, so you've got the new style start menu, the translucent or the transparent tiles that was in a build for some time, and then they just switched that on. They did their usual A/B testing, and they switched it on, and you've got the new style notifications and all that. So actually, for a minor update, actually, because they've changed a few of the user interface that's very much in your face at the start menu notifications, it actually looks like a bigger update than it probably is.
Yeah, I think you're right. And as I say, I think if you're already running Windows 10 2004, aka the May update, you've probably already got it and don't realize it.
Yeah, that's right.
It would just be turned on by magic.
Yeah, it's a nice update, and I think I do like the start menu. I've got it here on my. Well, I've had it on the test devices, but I've actually got this on release preview on my Surface laptop, and I do like the new look start menu. Although it does require a bit of tidying up, I think, once you get that new style one, where you perhaps want to group things a bit better. But yeah, it works good. So it's good to see that update's coming, and I think they'll push it out to seekers maybe the second Tuesday in October. And they haven't said the version number but I'm guessing it's 2010, isn't it?
I guess it'd be, it must be 2010 if it's 2004 before.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah. And like I said, they did patch it. They did patch it today, and I guess there might even be another couple of patches before they go live.
Yeah, I'll be very surprised. I'll be very surprised if they weren't, because they appear to be doing sort of, almost weekly updates to Windows 10. It's still, they've locked in the 19042 and just incrementally the minor number. So I would be very surprised if there aren't at least one more patch. It was just, I do like it when they say this could be the final build, and 4 days later.
Yeah, I did hit a bug. I'm not sure it's fixed with this update, but the 2004 around the 2010, effectively they have the same servicing pipeline, don't they, with them? So the same update. So I think there was a KB 4571756 which came out last week, which went to 2004. I think it was a B or a C update. It broke my Hyper-V.
Really?
And I'm not the only one that it broke it on, and I'm not sure if it's related to this WSL issues as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some fixes around Hyper-V in this new build.
So it may well fix it, but this hasn't got to release preview. But oh yeah, it will have actually, yeah. But the issue with Hyper-V is none of my Hyper-V would start up at all.
Oof.
And it was like class not registered errors, and as usual, I think Reddit turns out to be a pretty good source of information, because I found on the Windows group in there that it was somebody reporting this because WSL wouldn't work either, because it's the same underlying technology, isn't it?
And did you find it go away if it went away if you uninstalled that patch?
Yes, it did. Now I didn't have to do that. It's to do with the networking component. It was net something DLL, net virtualization or something like that. Anyway, if you got the solution that somebody had to work around was to get that file, that DLL that was missing, it'd been removed completely. You get it off a working 2004 machine, copy it onto your machine, do a reg server, and it fixes it. So hopefully they fix that in this one. But if you do get that issue, or anybody gets that issue, I can put a link in the show notes, because it's just a quick one on Reddit. But if you were using WSL, it would affect you because of the virtualization in the background. It was something like, I think it was called NetFabric Virtual Emulator or something like that. But it was to do with the network emulator for Hyper-V. So at least I got it working out. But I'd use that quite a bit. So I was like, oh, everything's broken. We did get a new dev channel build this week as well, 20215.
Yes, we did. I'll try not to yawn too loud at this, but for something that is supposed to be kind of like a high-speed preview type things with the latest cutting-edge code, we're not getting very much of that right now, are we? Really? I mean, this one we got the dark theme for search results in the start menu, which they turned on at the server side.
Yes.
And you may cheer, but I don't like dark theme personally, so I'm not that bothered. But I did think, is that it? It's like Ignite, we're almost at Ignite, and is that it? Is there nothing else? Surely you must be something new and exciting. And I don't know, perhaps I'm hoping for too much, but I just would have hoped, on being on the dev channel, there'd be some cool things appearing, but it hasn't been much for a while now. Perhaps they're going to give us the Linux GUI apps fairly soon.
Yeah, that was due soon, wasn't it? And I think that is something that they could put in the dev channel. Exactly,
because they showed that data for Add Ignite, so it must be just about there.
I did see some screenshots, I think, one of the presentations where it kind of looked like something like that. So maybe that's. Oh, I tell you, it took on Linux, so they did.
Oh yes, go on.
Ignite.
Yes,
Edge
go on.
is coming.
Yes, indeed. October, isn't it? Yes, yeah. I was saving that up for last. Yes, Edge is coming to Linux. You lucky Linux people are going to get the Edge browser, which I think it's a preview, isn't it, in October? And of course, the benefit of that is if you're, I'm trying to think of the breed of Linux user who uses Linux, but why would you use Edge? Because you get to bring your settings across everywhere else. It can be controlled by your organization, perhaps. I don't know, policies and things, maybe.
Yeah, I think I think that's what they were particularly highlighting, the policies and everything else. Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you've got a dev machine or you've got a web server or something, I don't know. I know people like to keep these roles separate, so you don't have a browser on your web server and stuff. But sometimes it's necessary.
Even a GUI, Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I always thought, it was quite a good idea for when I was using the Raspberry Pi quite a bit. I'd probably stick it on there and have some of my settings synced across. But I really, like you said, if you're really into Linux as your desktop operating system, you probably prefer to use Chromium sourced app, right? Not even the Google one.
Yes, yeah, or an alternative, because obviously you may not want to be using a Chromium-based browser. There's all kinds of issues around that, aren't there? So,
yeah. So, but yeah, great for pottering around with. I suppose if you've got Linux on there. Now something else I've got. One of the things that I do use quite a lot and like is the Your Phone application.
Oh yeah.
And I had some new features for the Your Phone, and then they were there, and then they've gone. But I did manage to capture them on video. So they've introduced, you've got apps on there, you've got messaging, you've got notifications, but there was 2 new sections which came onto my device, which is on release preview, which was sent from phone and contacts.
Mm-hmm.
So I did get a little video of this if you want to have a look at it. But if contacts basically drags the contacts from your phone, your Android phone, and you can then make calls or text them or whatever directly from your phone. So if you want to send someone a text, you can already do it through the messaging app, but you can see the contact list and you can message them on there or call them from there, which looked quite good.
Cool.
The other section was sent from phone, which is really strange actually. I thought, oh, this is good. It keeps like a log of things you've sent from your phone to your PC. But actually, when you go into it, it's a video showing you how to do send to PC from your phone, from the send to PC app that's already on your Android phone. So. But it's if you go on Android phone and do share, you can see. I think it's called Your Phone, and it'll continue on PC.
Oh yeah.
This is added an extra one which says send to your PC. So maybe they just was confusing people, so they've got a new name for it. But anyway, those new features have disappeared out of my device, so they must be doing A/B testing quite quickly on there. The other thing I've noticed as well is they've tabbed the settings. In settings on your phone, there's like a really long scrolling list of all the various settings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you go into settings, there's a divider with the section, so you can see features and you can see apps, and there's a personalization section and there's an about section. So they've kind of broken that down as well. So, but I find I use Your Phone a lot, especially with the Galaxy. I leave the phone on the desk and I use the Your Phone app to look at things, Android apps, if there's motion from a camera or when I check the thermostats or whatever I've not got a Windows app for, I just fire up the app directly from the start menu, and that works really well. So your phone actually, I think if you've got an iOS, it's pretty useless, but if you're on Android, and especially if you've got a Samsung device, it's pretty good.
Yes, when I say right, it's nearly totally useless. But of course, I think Microsoft would probably blame Apple's walled garden for that.
Yeah, definitely. But I like Your Phone. It's proving to be a nice way of integrating, and actually, the best experience of Android is to use it with Windows 10. It's kind of those two work really well together, and I think perhaps Microsoft has seen what Apple have done with their sort of bringing everything together, and they've done something which they didn't do with Windows Phone, ironically, and we never had that sort of integration between Windows Phone and the desktop OS that we've got now. Right, let's talk a bit Xbox.
Yes, so the Xbox, so the Series S and Series X went on pre-order today. Pre-order today, didn't they? I think we had the wonderful irony of at the point where dear old Satya Nadella was extolling the elasticity of the Microsoft Soft Cloud and how it can, its resilience is wonderful. Just as the store pretty much collapsed under the load of people hitting F5 to try and order their Xbox Series X. Yes, I guess it's pretty good. It seems to have pretty much been sold out. I mean, I had the opportunity of getting on this morning in the UK and decided I'm doing some work in the house, so I thought I'd leave it until next year, so and then see what the market's like. But people do seem to have snapped those things up at a great pace of knots.
Yeah, they certainly have, and I think good. good pricing strategies. There's been some good trading details. I was speaking to someone over the weekend who's got an Xbox One X, so a relatively new one, and they gave them £250. I think it was at Game. I think it was a Game. Gave them £250 trading against an Xbox Series X.
Wow.
So effectively, he's got the Series X for the price of the Series S, with trading in his X. I mean, I know the X is a new console and a powerful one anyway, but so there's still lots of demand for that. But even so, he feels he's got a pretty good deal with that. That he's traded up. And so, did he really need the extra 4K or whatever the X? He said, I just want the best. So there you go.
Yeah.
So that strategy has worked, I think.
I mean, I think I'd go for the X as well if I'm honest, because it is a bit more. But you think, yeah, just I might future-proof myself a bit. But it's good to see it. And I don't know if you saw the deal as well, because you could also, I think you could purchase it with an Xbox Ultimate Game Pass for $28.99 a month, I think, in the UK, wasn't it? Which is and then, of course, you had to commit to 2 years. So it's I guess if you think the console costs $449, it's probably not a bad deal. That if you think you'll be able to use the Xbox, and let's face it, there could soon be a lot more games on that Ultimate Game Pass.
Yeah, they could. So there was this pretty interesting timing as well. That the announcement on I think it was Monday. Was it Monday? Monday evening, wasn't it? That what's the company called that Microsoft have bought?
Bethesda, isn't it? Yeah.
Bethesda, yeah. And
basically, the ones that currently do Zoom, there's a point slip, Doom, and Wolfenstein. So I think we can soon expect to have Azure Stein and Doom 365. I think it's will be coming down the pipe.
Doom in Teams. How that's going to be a thing, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think they do Far Cry as well, and Skyrim, and interested to see how.
And some PlayStation 5 exclusives, I think, as well.
Yes. So I was talking to my sons who, I thought, what did they make of that purchase? And they'd heard about it, and they thought that was great, because all those games are all ones that they really like and play a lot, and they seem to be a good. They seem to have a good catalogue of games that have got some marketability about them. So Wolfenstein, Doom, Skyrim. These are, I think the Fallout one as well. These are really good, popular games, aren't they? Big billion-dollar games, and them coming to Game Pass, I think, was the thing that was the most interesting. Because Jack, because I said, are you going to buy it? He's talking about buying an Xbox, and as you know, he's a PC gamer, and I think he's going to get one. He said. But he's going to get the Game Pass Ultimate, and these games automatically come on Game Pass Ultimate. I think they're coming to Game Pass Ultimate anyway, and I think Game Pass Ultimate looks a great deal. So it
does indeed. And did you not also get xCloud in that as well?
Yeah, you do. So you get PC, you get Xbox, and you get xCloud all included in that. And every time Microsoft buys a game studio, they seem to put them onto the Game Pass and makes that even more valuable. And I think that is probably one of the biggest selling features of Xbox.
Yeah, it's a weird, it's a very strange situation to be in. I think we have Microsoft who has backed away from consumer pretty much everywhere. I mean, even the Surface Duo phone, that's clearly not a consumer device. It's aimed at IT professionals or those who've got a particular need for that niche. And yet the Xbox, it just impressively just keeps on rocking. I mean, they spent is it $7.5 billion that they've spent on this game studio? It's some epic amount of money. I think it's almost as much as they spent on GitHub. It's quite an impressive purchase. So it does show some serious commitment in that particular in that market, because you can't see them walking away from that particularly quickly. I mean, I think only Nokia is the only one I can think of they walked away from in a big hurry.
And I think anything that strengthens the console itself. I mean, the consoles themselves look brilliant, and I think perhaps the only question was about these exclusivities that Sony were trying to get. And anything that strengthens Game Pass particularly just is going to boost the Xbox. I think Game Pass seems to be the thing that is a real selling feature over anything that PlayStation have got. Especially the PlayStation games like £70, aren't they?
They're really expensive, really, really expensive. Yeah, it's going to be, I think, a very interesting time if you're if you're gaming, because I mean I've got a PS4, I had an Xbox 360 before that, and I'm pondering what to go for next, because the PS4 is okay, but I'd quite like a next gen console, and I would have probably gone for a PS5, but I have to say the Series X, particularly with the I use the Game Pass on my PC, as you know. I play things like Forza, Flight Sim, Sea of Thieves on my PC, and I think there's some really cracking games on there, and it's not a huge amount of money compared to. I also do the PlayStation Plus thing, and that's okay, but I don't know, the Xbox one just seems to be better. Perhaps that's just the games I play.
Yeah, I think so. It certainly looks like it's not as clear cut as it was, with PlayStation winning over the previous gen. And I think if Microsoft have handled the launch a lot better than they did last time. They mixed their messaging up as much as the Xbox One appealed to us media center enthusiasts for its media capabilities. I think they probably missed the messaging for gamers, and there was, and I think they're certainly avoiding that this time.
Yeah, definitely. Although I guess they would have preferred it not to have launched quite in the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, they really struggled with the odd leaks and things like that, didn't they? And the fact that they couldn't do big real in place events that they could launch this at, but with whooping crowds and whatever, it all had to be done virtual with blog posts after leaks.
Yes, in people's rooms.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to watch, but I think it's got to be software over hardware, I think, for this gen, or content. Perhaps that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we shouldn't underestimate the kind of toxicity of the console fanboys. I mean, you and I are both old enough to remember the Commodore versus Sinclair playground arguments.
Oh, boo, Commodore and BBC Micros as well at high school.
I had a TI-99 and no one knew the hell that was, so it's fine.
You were out on your own with that. No one. Did you ever meet?
I just watched the Commodore. Not at school, no. It was all Commodores, Spectrums, and me. That's how it went. Oh, and there's one or two nerds who had BBCs, which, looking back on it, were a way better machine, but looking back with our eyes.
Yeah, exactly. One of my best friends at school had a TI. So as much as I like to joke about my friend had one, and I love my Spectrum, but it was a quality looking. The design and everything was very much a step up.
But I mean, I guess the point I'm making is kind of, we remember these childish rows and things in playgrounds just that were based on no rational behavior whatsoever. There's no rational, and you seem to see the same thing here with PlayStation 5 and the Xbox, Series X, Series S, whatever. These two sets of fanboys all shouting at each other. You think, well, let's just see what the game's like, shall we? Because they're both impressive bits of hardware. It is, I hope, going to come down to, to software as opposed to tribalism. I must have this hardware because I can't possibly have one that begins with X or that begins with a P.
Yeah, I know, and I also hope for gamers as well that the exclusivity thing is a bit that they go away from that as well, because it seems very counterproductive to you can't have the Spider-Man game if you've got your Xbox, but if you've got
exactly and also kind of cross-platform gaming too, which I'm hoping with like some Minecraft and things, they're kind of getting over that. It's like you can't play, it's the same game, but you can't play it on two different brands of console, which is maddening, I think. So hopefully that sort of thing is going to go away. I keep my fingers crossed, and obviously we'll just put Apple to one side in that conversation. But I would hope that the games makers and console makers can come to some sort of agreement and just stop being so petty and ridiculous.
Why can't we all just live together in peace and harmony?
Exactly. Why can't we? We should all buy Oculus Quest 2 headsets instead.
Oh yes, did you get one?
I have ordered one. Yeah, I did order one of those because I'm a massive VR fan, and I had been vaguely aware of what was coming down the pipe. So I did get my pre-order in for that, and that's due to arrive on the 14th of October. And of course, this is for those not aware, this is the Oculus Quest 2, where I kind of had to sort of choked down my dislike of social media, because of course you're going to have to use a Facebook account fairly soon to log into to actually use the Oculus Store, which is, I think, a real shame. The Oculus brand is being subsumed into Facebook, which is a shame, but was inevitable. That was going to happen at some point. But I guess because I don't really do much on Facebook, it's not really, I don't really mind that much. But I think some people who are perhaps very active on Facebook may object to their profile being used by Oculus to access the Quest. But yes, this is the Quest 2, which was announced again with muted fanfare. I think was it Facebook Connect? I think was it last weekend? I think, and yeah, it's a neat looking device actually. They basically upped the resolution of the screen, so I think it's now 1832 by 1920 per eye, which is pretty high actually. And they've also upped the process. I think it's is it a Snapdragon XR2, I think, which again it's just, you know, it beats the 2018 vintage mobile phone CPU it had before, and I think 6 gigs of RAM, and it also comes in 64 gig. I think is it 256 gig storage. And having had a Quest 1, I'd always recommend going for the bigger storage, because otherwise it just gets irritating. Although one of the really cool things about the Quest 2 is if you're again, it much like the Windows mixed reality things, you don't need lighthouses around the room. It uses cameras in the headset, which I think we first saw work properly with the Microsoft headsets. But you can also plug it into your PC to get access to more powerful, the more powerful hardware to play more demanding games like Project Cars, what have you, which I'm guessing won't work out the box, because the joy of the Quest 2 and the Quest and headsets like it is they are wire free. You're free to roam around and walk into walls, unless assuming you've messed up the VR Guardian.
Yeah, I never bother with the boundary, even on my laptop that's in this room. But I just bang the wall. I think the only time I ever do that is when I was trying to complete Rick and Morty, and I did manage to bang the wall a few times. You don't get that when you're in the racing games with the wheel and you sat down. But yeah, so this is when you do the link. Does it have some? Is it like a HDMI type cable?
I think it's USB 3. I think.
Right.
Sorry, USB-C. My apologies, USB-C. I think is what it is, and that basically hooks into your PC, and then that's enough to shunt the video up and down. So I think the Quest 2 becomes a little more than just a dumb headset. I'm assuming it bypasses the actual machinery inside.
Yeah, but that means so you could use it to play something like Flight Sim or Project Cars 2, but then you can unplug the wire and play a lower spec requirement. Yeah, exactly. Without any cables. Yeah. Exactly. It gives you the best of both worlds then.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I have to say, I'm still not 100% convinced by. Certainly on my Quest and on the Windows mixed reality headsets I've used, I'm not being 100% convinced by the sensors being on the headset, because I've had configurations where I've had sort of lighthouse type sensors around the room, so they can sense everything you're doing, even when you put your hands behind your back and things, which I found that for certain games, I was thinking about, say, Robo Recall springs to mind, where you reach behind your back to pull a sword out or a gun out. Then sometimes I found it losing track of where my hand is and getting quite confused. Yeah,
I suppose. I just like the idea that you've got the option of using both systems. That's the definite advantage over the
exactly. Yeah, it is good. I mean, and it's a new device. So in a few weeks' time, I should tell what it's like.
Yeah, I do like the. I think the Quest 2 looks. I'm looking forward to seeing what you make of that.
Yeah, for sure. It's as I said. I mean, I've heard some mutterings. Isn't Myst coming out in it as well? They've had that old Myst game, the adventure game. I've heard some. I don't know. I've heard some rumors around that, so I'm not quite sure if that was announced or not, or what. But that should be quite fun if that does come out, because I do remember Myst from the 90s when it first appeared, and it was very strange and surreal.
Yeah, that was that one of the first sort of big graphical games, wasn't it? In terms of, did it come on a CD? What platform was that? Was it PC?
I think it was PC, and I think it came on a CC and a CD, because I think it was around the time of things like Seventh Guest as well. Do I remember that?
Multimedia kind of games where they would play video clips from the CD and all that kind of. Yeah, it was. I guess it was 486 kind of Sound Blaster era.
Nice. Yes,
Yeah.
I've just checked. Sorry, this person looks up things which you should have prepared before the show, and can confirm that Mist is indeed coming to the Oculus Quest, being reimagined for the Quest. So
Fantastic.
I just remember seeing that. So I thought, oh, that'd be exciting. So yeah, it's going to be a. I mean, I imagine it's going to be a game on rails type thing though, which will, it won't be quite, which is what Mist basically was. You could go on a rail somewhere, then solve a puzzle, and then go to the next location. If I recall correctly, of course, that was a good 20 odd years ago now, 30 years ago. Even.
Yeah, I was going to say, just more than that, isn't it? Yeah. Do you reckon you'll be able to get the flight sim working with the Quest?
You know what, I would bet not. I mean, the other thing I'm looking on doing next year as well is again, once the house is done, and I've got I know how much money I can spend on gadgets. I think I'm going to rebuild the gaming rig, and I suspect there might be a Reverb G2 at some point in my future. I'm going to see what they do, but all the mutterings I've heard has been that it's going to be a Reverb G2 type exclusive. It's not going to fit on. It's not going to be runnable on things like the Quest or Rift S or those things. But I hope I'm wrong there, because it would be a shame, because I think Flight Sim 2020 VR would be spectacular.
Yeah, and I think it's October. It's due, isn't it? But to the same time as the Reverb comes out.
Exactly, yeah. So I've got a feeling it's going to be optimized for that, which I think would be a shame, but understandable though. It'll be on, it'll be on Steam or whatever. Because as I say, I mean, I do find Flight Sim 2020 just breathtaking. Actually, really, if you're at all like flights, even if you're an occasional flight sim, it's not that hard to get into. But it just looks stunning. It really does.
Yeah, it's really nice, and I think VR will be a great way of experiencing it as well. It's a great. It's just like driving games. That immersiveness is fantastic when you're in something like that.
Absolutely. I was going to say actually, this is kind of a follow up. This is on a whole different tack. Follow up from last week, and services and things being closed down or being charged for. Did you read about the Adidas thing that's happening?
No.
Well, the smart Libra scales, which were around a few years ago, and they cost about, I think, £100 or so, about $130. And these smart scales called Libra were very clever. That you'd weigh yourself on them, and it would log it in an app and whatever else.
Oh, that's why I've got something like that.
Yeah. Being turned off.
Oh.
So basically, there's been a big, there's been a bit of a hoo-ha as Adidas, I think they announced that they're going to discontinue the ability to sort of log stuff on the scales into the app, which I think it's kind of almost like a salutary warning about if you buy things that depend on a service. There's no way, you can't guarantee that service will always be supported forevermore. In this case, Adidas have clearly decided that it's not worth their while keeping their service running, and so they'll be turned off. So I think it's yet another example of when you buy these things that depend on an app on a phone, they could go away at any time.
Yeah, that was there's one thing that concerned me when I went for the Hive heating, as opposed to a standalone system. But I was banking on the fact that it's backed by British Gas and so on, that it's going to stick around. But you suddenly, if they decide to pull out of that market, and you've got what was a smart heating just turns into a dumb heating system, it's a lot of money, and it's hardwired in as well. It's not like you can swap it out easily. So that was a concern. And as we've seen with IFTTT, that things can change very quickly. In fact, we should update on that. We talked about that last week about them charging potentially $10 a month. They've said now that if you name your price, you can name your price forever rather than just for the first year. So you could name, I think the lowest you could go was $199. So you can go for $199 for the rest of your time with them. But subject to them changing it, I would guess. But
exactly, yeah. I'm always conscious of them doing of what happened with their Plex as well, where it's like, oh yeah, you'll pay for this for life. Oh, whose life? Oh, a gerbil's life, you mean? Fine, great.
Yeah. So that's their compromise. I was hoping the compromise would be 10 applets or whatever, but no, it's just the $199. But what I have found is that I've managed to replicate a lot of these services through the Alexa app directly. I think Garry suggested last week having a look at that. And do you remember the one I could never get working, which was my Arlo cameras to announce when there's someone at the front door?
Yep.
Turns out that functionality is built into the skill on the Alexa app. So I don't have to use IFTTT to get that working. You can just go into the app, you can find your Arlo camera, and you just switch on motion. Just put announcements, just switch it on. And it's got time windows in there, and you can pick which device does the announcements. So now, if anybody goes near the front door now in the kitchen, it comes up motion detected at front door.
Cool.
And I've also found that you can use it as a trigger as well, which I know I tried working in the past and never got that to work, but I disabled the skill, re-enabled the skill to repair it up again effectively, and I've got that working as well. So when there's motion at the front door and you can set a time window, so I've done it after midnight, it switches on my Hue lights in the living room, and then I set another one up that's delayed by 10 minutes to switch them back off again. And it works really well. So I have multiple IFTTT routines for this, and now I've just moved it all directly into the Alexa app using the routines. So no need to spend $1.99 a month or £10 or whatever it is now. I've replicated most of the functionality I had before directly in the Alexa app, which means I'm more all in on the app and that service, which is a risk. But as we've seen, you've got to put you've got to build it on some system, and this IFTTT thing has made me less cross-platform and more into the Amazon device.
Yeah, which I think is a risk, because obviously we'd all prefer to use more indie stuff, but ultimately you can be fairly sure that the likes of Amazon will probably be around for for the duration. It's just of course, that said, we have also said similar things about Microsoft, and they've demonstrated their willingness to get bored of stuff and kill them without warning. So maybe not.
And the other thing I mentioned this last week about the SwitchBot, but I've posted the video of that as well. So that's these little bots that you stick on top of the switch of any.
I saw this video. This is hilarious. Yeah. Yes. And
it pushes the button, and there's two modes you can make with these. There's a push action and there's a on-off action. So you can combine it to work with anything. So I've got a light switch in the garage, which that is hard to reach. There's two light switches, one near the garage back door and one near the opening front door of the garage. And that one is a cabinet in the way, and it's kind of in the way, so it never really gets used. So I've stuck that on it. And it switches it on and it switches it off. So I haven't had to swap the light. I haven't to put a smart bulb in there or swap out the faceplate or anything like that. I just stuck this on it with a little sticky pad, and it switches the light on and switches the light off again through. And I can just do it through the Alexa app, and I could put a motion sensor or whatever. And I could use the routines to do that. Control.
I would recommend to watch that video because it's hilarious.
And the other thing you can do with it, because it's got push as well, you don't have to have it in the on-off mode. It means you could put it on more. You could put it on your coffee machine. You could put it on your dishwasher to turn your dishwasher on. You can really anything that has got an old-fashioned push. Just a toggle. Either it can be a toggle on, toggle off, or it could just be a push button. Will work with this as well. So maybe you've got an audio receiver that you use in your home cinema that doesn't have, you can't link up with your smart home because it's not smart. Then this button would switch the amp on and switch the amp off for you if you wanted to. Or, I've got a coffee machine that to actually get your coffee effective, you need two buttons, one to tap the power button and one to tap the coffee button. But there's a bit of a delay while it heats up. So, I could actually fit one of these things to it and have a timer on it to switch the coffee on before I come down in the morning, or whatever you wanted to do. You can combine them all together. So I've got a few of these bots now. So I thought it was quite a cool little thing. It's a little actuator that presses the button. It's really,
I think that's
really
brilliant.
Nice. Yeah.
That's excellent.
So I've got all that set up now. So I think I'll get a motion sensor now. So when I go into because often you go into the garage, it's in the middle of the night or it's in the evening now and it's dark, isn't it? And you're faffing around trying to find the power switch. Now
that is the proper digital lifestyle there. The proper digital lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So these little bots are the future.
Excellent. I like it.
Yeah. So I think that's just about everything we've got time for. We have got a bonus interview actually coming up. Garry has got one of his series of electric vehicle chats coming up. And so I'm going to hand over to Garry shortly. So before we go to Garry, Richard, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
Excellent. We'll find, and I'm looking forward to seeing how you get on with the Quest. So we probably will talk to you before then, actually, won't we? But a couple of weeks before you get that.
Exactly. And I'll also better bore you senseless about me attempting to build a Lego Saturn V launch tower to go with the Saturn V rocket that I've got.
Oh, I've seen some of your pictures.
Yeah, I've had to use glue, Ian. Glue.
Oh, glue with Lego?
Well, it's not real Lego. Oh. And I'll say no more than that.
I remember when I was 10, I had the Lego lunar module.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I wish I kept all that, but I remember spending ages building it. It took a long time. And then once I built it, it was like, oh, I built it now. What do I do? Take it all apart.
Well, exactly. This is the problem you see. I mean, the joy of Lego is you build this stuff and you take it apart. And well, I mean, obviously, I've got a small child in the house as well, and her, we basically built the International Space Station. She said it needs an escape ramp and a pet shop. So, which I thought was fun because that's what Lego's all about. It's about creating stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, I do miss the Lego Mindstorms too because I think it was about sort of 10 years ago. They were the Mindstorms when they were really around. They were superb for creating stuff and doing robots and things. Not so cool now, really. But yeah. So this unfortunately, it's not proper Lego and it doesn't fit. It looks like Lego, doesn't fit together quite as well as it should.
Well, and people should go on your Twitter to have a look at the picture of that because it looks really interesting.
Yeah, it'll be 1.25 meters high in the end.
Right, well, that's just about what we've got time for then. So I'm going to hand over to Garry. You can find me at digitallifestyle.com and at iStix on Twitter. We'll see you next week.
Cheerio.
So welcome to the second part of my interview with Gill Nowell of ElectraLink, who also runs EVClicks and is a founder member of the Electric Vehicle Association of England, EVA England. Anyway, let's start off by talking to Gill about what we left off on last time, EVClicks.
So let's move on to some of your other side projects. So one of the ones I've always loved you've done is the sign behind you, EVClicks, and the image behind me, which is one of the images on that library. So tell me a bit about that. How did that come about?
Yeah, thanks very much, Garry, for asking that. So in my line of work, I reasonably often, need to source an electric vehicle or electric vehicle charging image, whether it's a project or presentation or whatever. And I would go online, and of course there are images out there, but I found them to be very stylized, very professional. And I wanted to find images that were very true to life. So I thought, oh, okay, so why didn't I, and I couldn't find anything like that really. So I thought, why don't I do something about it? So I set up a Twitter account for EVClicks and put out a request to a few, more well-known people in the EV community to start sending images. I set up a website where the online library lives, and it's really taken off. So we now have almost 2,000 EV images on the website evclicks.co.uk, and the idea behind it really is for those images, they're all freely available to download. So essentially they have been donated to EVClicks for freely available use by anybody to help the transition to zero emission transport, for use by communities, projects, businesses. Governments have used some of the images in some schools campaigns. Trade bodies are using them. I know that I know some people who are using them when they go out and do presentations on climate change and so on. So it's really encouraging that actually not only are people donating from all over the globe, that these images are actually being used, which is exactly what I set it up for in the first place.
And I think that's great, and it needed to be there because I still see images in news articles of EVs which haven't been in production for 5 or 6 years. It's crazy, and they sometimes give a very false impression of what EVs actually are and what's available now. So I think it's a great thing you're doing with that. So if people want to send you an image, how would they do that?
So one of the ways to do it is just to, if you have a Twitter account, then just tweet the photo and tag at EVClicks, and I will pick it up. There is also an email address now, which is evclicks@gmail.com. And you can also go on the website and you can find all the social media accounts associated with EVClicks on there now. And there's also a page that will tell you how, other ways which you can donate. But probably Twitter or direct by email is the best way, Garry.
Brilliant. So you mentioned you drive a second-hand Leaf. How did you get into EVs yourself? Was it just from the fact you were involved in the industry, or was it? Did you see another car somewhere else? What basically was the story?
Yeah. So I think I've always liked cars a little bit. I remember years and years and years ago going on a track day, and driving an E-Type Jag around the track, and that was just exhilarating. And I even got to drive a double-decker bus around a slalom course. And I found, and it took me days to recover from that. I thought it was brilliant. So something has always been there around cars, but it was really getting involved in the EV grid integration project back in 2012 and onwards that sparked my interest. And I remember my first drive in a Nissan Leaf back in 2012, 2013, and the classic, me sitting there saying, so how do I turn it on? And then the person in the passenger seat saying, it is on, Gill, and thinking, oh my goodness, that's amazing. So, and then putting your foot down, and because zero torque, or 100% torque rather, and it just goes. So, and I've been to so many events, like Fully Charged Live and Cenex LTV, where you actually get to test drive lots of different electric cars, and just totally fell in love with them. Never mind the fact that it's about 40,000 people in the UK die prematurely of diseases related to air pollution, and road transport is a massive contributor to that. So there's all that as well, of course. And then actually buying my Nissan Leaf, it took me quite a number of years because I had the use of a paid for car. So I couldn't justify the outlay until it got written off, which, so this massive silver lining to my car being written off was, right, there is no excuse now. So I got in contact with Matt Cleveley at Cleveley EV, and he very kindly, over a Christmas and New Year period, found me my Nissan Leaf.
It's funny, but Matt seems to have got mentioned on every interview I've done so far. So it's obviously a very important part of the sphere now. And actually, I was talking to Paul, who runs the EV festivals, in my last interview, and he's in the automotive industry himself, in the second user type market and the spares and parts market. And he was bemoaning how little people there is out there in terms of second-hand sales of EVs, especially around the car supermarkets. And that's something I've noticed. But we're really lucky that we've got people like Cleveley. We've got so many small little businesses running to provide second-hand EVs. So it's really important. If we're going to have this mass adoption, we've got to have second-hand EVs.
Yeah, absolutely agree, Garry. And Jonathan Porterfield,
of course, yes,
is a definite go-to as well. Brilliant source of advice, and yeah.
Yeah, like Jonathan's great. It really is good. So I think so that's a key thing. But I think one of the driving factors to that is we need to get cars onto the market, and I think we're certainly seeing this year a change in that market. I think we're probably fast approaching that tipping point we've always talked about for some time. I mean, I started these interviews about 3 years ago, and I was talking to Bobby Lou back then, and sort of we were talking, well, will 2020 be the year? Will it actually be the year we start seeing mass adoption? And we're starting to see the percentages are going up, and we saw for a couple of months this year where the top two cars in the UK were both EVs, which is incredible to see that sort of sell figures. So I think there's definitely something happening there. But do you think that the infrastructure is there to support that at the moment? I mean, you're a Leaf driver, so you probably don't get impacted quite so much by the the problems we CCS drivers have on the services, but is that something you come across, or is it you're aware of?
Certainly aware of it from hearing about it on all the the various sort of social forums and so on. But I'm convinced that charging infrastructure is improving all the time, and of course it's still a big challenge for people who don't have off-street parking to buy an electric car. And this is where the real mix of charging solutions comes in, doesn't it, I think? So not only the brilliant sort of pop-up charging solutions that we're seeing at the moment, but also charging hubs as well. I think they're going to have a really big part to play in sort of the charging mix, definitely. I have relatively limited experience of sort of charging when I'm out and about. The ones that I particularly love are on my route, because I live just outside Chester. So when I drive into North Wales, there's some great charging options along the A55 there, thanks to Ongini, and so on. But and I've used the very well known chargers along motorway services and so on, and I've had mixed experience there. It's fair to say. But one of my favourite places to charge is at Chester Zoo, because we've got a beautiful row of pop point. And my children always, I think they groan inwardly when we pull up there, because I always have to take a photo.
I'm as equally as bad. I visited, actually on a family trip, I visited the Instavolts at Necton the other week, and I had to stop and take photographs and had a long chat with the engineer, which is really good. But it's great to see those coming online. Yeah. It does seem to take an awful long time sometimes for these chargers. They pop up and then they seem to take forever to connect to the grid, which is I think sometimes somewhat disappointing to people. Although they're quite good adverts sitting there ready to go online, but the Necton ones seem to take well over a year to actually be connected up, which is a bit frustrating. But you're hopefully going to be in a position to try and help with some of these questions we've been talking about, because you're one of the founder members of a new organisation, if I got this right, the EV Association of England.
Electric Vehicle Association.
Yes, I must put the full electric vehicle in there. Electric Vehicle Association England. No, we've had an EVA Scotland for some time, but there hasn't been anything equivalent in the UK, in the England side. I keep saying UK, but in England specifically. So how did this come about?
So a group of very sort of interested individuals, myself included, came together. It was really started by one of our founding directors, a chap called Alan Cooklin, and Bridget Phelps, and they met each other at a charging point and got chatting, and obviously discovered a sort of a mutual enthusiasm and determination to actually do something useful to support EV uptake and EV drivers in England. They then reached out to Dan Brown, who's one of our other founding board members, who then reached out to myself and a couple of others. So we've been sort of meeting on a weekly basis for quite some time now. And a couple of weeks ago, we were in a position where we'd registered the company. It's a community interest company. We were in a position to launch. One of the things we're very keen to do is and really one of our core principles, Garry, is to offer a voice to EV drivers in England. And one of the things we want to do very early on is to be of use. So the first thing we've done is to launch a survey that you can find at evsurvey.co.uk, very easy to remember, we hope. And this is to invite either prospective or current EV drivers' views on the government consultation to bring forward the phase-out date of new sales of petrol and diesel cars and vans from 2040 to 2035 or earlier. So it takes between 5 to 8 minutes to fill out, and we've had actually, as of this morning, 525 responses to that survey, which is really quite phenomenal. Yeah, having run surveys, at work, then that number is pretty incredible. But what we will do is we hope that there's strength in numbers, essentially. So we will collate those responses. The survey is still open. We will collate those responses, and we will sort of communicate the results to OLEV, to the Office for Low Emission Vehicles, who's running that consultation. And we hope in that way, we'll have a real impact and be able to do something very sort of materially useful on behalf of EV drivers. We've also issued a second survey in the last few days, and that's a prospective EVA England member survey, because we don't want to presume or assume anything on behalf of prospective members to the association. So really, we're asking, firstly, is there a need for this kind of association? If there is, would you consider being a member? And then what kind of services could we offer? So, that voice into government, for example, or discounted products and services and so on. And that takes about a minute to fill out, so that's really, really quick. And you can find that on the website. Excellent.
Well, I encourage people to go across there, because the survey, I took the survey myself this morning, so you've got one more number. and it's very straightforward, easy to follow through, so that's really good. And it's good to have that collective voice, because I think there's a lot of us out there who are EV enthusiasts. A lot of us got individual voices. There's quite a few individual manufacturer type EV clubs, so Renault Club, particularly noticeable, but all of them out there, MG ZS EV group, the Jack Pace group I'm part of. But there hasn't been that sort of consolidated voice up to now, I don't think, in England. I mean, obviously Scotland's got that, which has been good, but I think we do need that. And we also do need that routing to government. And I know that some of your board members have got contacts and things which will make that a little bit easier, perhaps, than if I, for example, wanted to go and talk to someone in the DOT or wherever about what's going on. So that's good to see. So how do you see it moving forward? I've obviously talked about membership. That's one good thing, I think. You continue to have meetings, intending to talk to the government. Basically, where do you see it going?
Yeah, sure. So the surveys, the launch of the association, the website, and the surveys have been sort of the first tranche of activity, Garry. There will be more surveys coming out to support responses to future government consultations. I think there's one on vehicle tax coming out that we'll be looking to get a survey out on. But really, the focus then for the autumn will be setting up the membership structure and opening up the association to members. And in terms of what happens after that, a lot of that will depend on the results of the prospective member survey. We really do, we want to be driven as such by the members, by the prospective members. So we make sure that we're doing, we're working for that membership, essentially. And one of the things we're looking to do at the moment as well, Garry, is to secure some funding for the operation of EVA England. And by that, I mean being able to secure resource so that we can employ somebody. So, again, great news in terms of job creation, we hope, but it's exciting times for sure.
Yeah, and I get that totally. I've been involved in associations for other things in the past, and you need that full-time concentration on it, which all the board members are volunteers. You've all got other jobs. It'd be really difficult to get something like this off the ground and actually maintain it, because you've got to be a contact, especially when you're dealing with government. You've got to be contactable all the time. So yes, totally see that. Encourage people to help you out on that. It's been great talking to you, Gill. It really has. I love your enthusiasm. I love what I've seen on Twitter from you. It's really, really good. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks to Garry. You can email me ian@thislifestyle.com. Thanks to Richard for joining us earlier as well. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.